everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Black-Liberation.Tech podcast. I am your host, Dr. Renee Jordan, and today I'm going to start by reading a blog post from June 2018, and it is entitled Personalize Your Education. Word to the wise, if you are a non-traditional student, do not limit your learning to traditional education. And if you are a traditional student, then my recommendation remains the same. Here are the books I picked up for myself after perusing Dr. Fernillier's, my advisor's, collection during the writing retreat. And the first one is Jubilee, The Emergence of African American Culture by Howard Dodson with Amir Baraka, Gail Buckley, John Hope Franklin, Henry Louis Gates Jr., Annette Gordon Reed, and Gerold S. Wilmore. The next one is Funds of Knowledge, Theorizing Practices in Households, Communities, and Classrooms, edited by Norma Gonzalez, Luis Moll, and Kathy Aminati. Next, we have Fictions of Feminist Ethnography by Kamala Waran. Next, we have PhD Stories, Communications with My Sisters by Joanne Kilgore Dowdy. Next, we have Transforming the Curriculum for Multicultural Understandings, a Practitioner's Handbook by James B. Boyer and H. Prentice Baptiste Jr. Last but not least, Tricks of the Trade, How to Think About Your Research While Doing It by Howard S. Becker. Another book that I picked up that I do not have a hard copy of, I have an electronic copy, is Flat-Footed Truths, edited and with an introduction by Patricia Bell Scott with Juanita Johnson Bailey. You might say, Renee, I thought you were getting a PhD in instructional technology. What do these books have to do with technology? People who use technology come from all walks of life and have different experiences. I think that it's important for me to know more about people if I am to serve them better, specifically those who are underserved by systems of traditional education. So once again, thank you for joining me for another episode. When I think back to the writing retreat and all of the books that my advisor, Dr. Fernillier, had available for us to take a look at, I was amazed. She has an amazing library of books, and she certainly showed how she valued them by purchasing them. There were so many. And before I left, I took pictures of the ones that I borrowed and took a look at them for myself a little deeper. Now, one thing to note is that I did not come across these books prior to her class, and that was my last qualitative research course. And so I want to encourage you before your last class to take a look at what other books are out there. Perhaps these books fall outside of what your discipline would offer in your research classes or your coursework. But I want to encourage you to take a look at them because of what they have to offer. For example, Funds of Knowledge was something that I ended up recommending to someone at a conference, at AERA specifically. They were doing their dissertation and were working on the analysis piece, and they were trying to figure out how they could go about bringing in some of the things that they saw or observed in the phenomenon for their dissertation. And the individual did have a Mexican heritage, and a light bulb went off. And so I said, you know what? Have you heard of Funds of Knowledge? I think it's something in there that might be helpful for you. And so I looked up the title and the authors, and I shared that with her on a slip of paper so that she can go back and check it out for herself. Sometimes the reading you do is not only for you, but it's for somebody that you might run across at any given point in time that can actually help them along the way. The reason I recommend reading these types of things, if your discipline does not necessarily offer them to you in your regular coursework, it's because there are ways of being and doing and ways of writing writing research that can help you even if these books do not show up in your classroom. It's okay to go out, seek them for yourself, and see how they can assist you in your progress. The reason I said this was personalized education because these are books that I selected for myself, and they were offered as additional tools and resources that I could use to help me along my writing journey. It's important to take a look at topics that go beyond your immediate academic discipline and embrace an interdisciplinary learning for yourself because that's going to enrich your work. Why does that enrich your work? Because you're not looking at things through a singular lens, but you're taking other perspectives and possibilities in account. So when you're able to pull in from different disciplines, you're able to say, here is what I've learned, and these are the places that I've gone in order to help me in my learning process. Some of the ways that you can pull in other disciplines is by taking classes that are additional to your actual coursework. Yes, I needed to take an advanced research course, but they did not say what that advanced research course had to be. And because I had the unique opportunity of taking part in the writing retreat on writing qualitative manuscripts, I was able to get a deeper understanding of the possibilities of qualitative research. Other ways that I was able to take a look at more literature was by taking on independent reading courses. And that's what I did after finishing my coursework. I said, you know what? I still have some more reading to do. And I spent time reading more about the instructional design framework I was interested in. I spent more time reading about what was present in the scholarship on Latinas as it related to digital literacies and technology skill development. Those were things that I needed to add or enhance in my literature review. Other ways of personalizing your education can include taking advantage of opportunities such as independent studies, community engagement, and self-directed learning. By taking my independent reading courses, I was able to have the time and space to read more about what would push me further along my proposal writing and dissertation process. Now, it wasn't that I didn't read a lot before, but I needed to read more. And let's not kid ourselves. When you have an assignment to read, it makes you more likely to read. In order to get approved for my independent reading, I had to provide a bibliography of the literature that I intended to read. I was free to add to it, but the professor who granted permission to the course needed to know what I was starting off with and that I was serious about planning out my semester. By the end of the semester, I provided the professor with an annotated bibliography of the literature I read. While I provided the professor with an annotated bibliography, I kept for myself my notes. I kept for myself the quotes that I wanted to refer back to when I got to writing my literature review. I kept for myself the notes of how the different articles and books seem to link together and what holes seem to appear as I continued to read. What was missing? What could I fill in with my research? What could I add to the scholarship as it related to my chosen topic? When you're able to pull from different authors, then you're able to make connections that someone else might have overlooked. You're able to take a look at the problem, the issue, the topic, the subject matter that you're exploring in a way that might not have been repeated by someone else. Additionally, you're able to see how people from different disciplines may approach the same problem. What do they have to say about it? What have they observed about the phenomenon? And how can that information add to what you have to say? Or perhaps offer a counter argument as far as what might be occurring in a phenomenon. That's important to address in your work as well. You don't always want to have people who agree with you, or else you will not be prepared to defend your argument. You need to be able to say, I understand that someone else may have this other perspective, and this is why I decided to go along with this perspective. So, by having references that will not only support your argument, but also highlight what you might be missing or what you might not want to subscribe to in your argument, or align yourself with, and having a rationale behind it will strengthen your argument because you're not just presenting a one-sided approach or argument to your work. Reading the work of others can also help build empathy. Now, this book in particular, which talked about PhD stories, conversations with my sisters, was important for me to read because it let me know that I was not alone. My journey was not exactly the same as others, but there were others who were finding challenges. Whether those were personal challenges, professional challenges, academic challenges, they were working through the challenges that they ran into during their PhD journey and shared it in a way that others could access the information and say, hey, you know what? I've had something similar. Or perhaps that's not your story. You still can develop empathy and understand, wow, I didn't know that someone else was going through this. I haven't experienced this myself, but with this in mind, the next time I have an opportunity to help someone, I'm going to either do what I can to help them, provide them with guidance on what they might want to look at in order to get assistance. Perhaps you might even want to refer them to this book and say, hey, you know what? Some of the things that you're saying are present in this book, and perhaps reading it will help you along your way. Now, it might not be that they're writing their PhD journey, but they might need encouragement to go along the way and being able to say, hey, you are not alone. You're not the only one. Yes, challenges do come up, but people work through them. And so here are some people who worked through their challenges, and a part of working through their challenges was writing it out. So once again, even if it's not your thesis or your dissertation that you're writing about, it's okay to write and express yourself in writing and save that for later. Perhaps you'll come back to it and share it, whether it's through a publication or whether it's one-on-one. Any way that you can help someone along the way, even yourself, is a good plan. Not only can reading the works of others help to foster empathy, it can also help you to understand how others may approach a problem, an issue, a topic, as well as build your cultural competences in terms of understanding that, hey, people have different ways of doing things, and that's okay. When we're talking about writing research projects, thesis, dissertations, or other scholarly publications, it is up to you to decide what gets included in that work. Chances are, when you were going through school, you were handed the recommended readings, but now when you're writing your thesis or dissertation or conducting a research project, it's up to you to decide whose voice gets considered along with your work. It's your turn. Who would you recommend others to reference and why? How do they show up in your work? How do they make a difference in what you had to say? How do they educate others about your research area? My biggest takeaway from those 6 books was that there are other ways of approaching research that I might not have come across outside of that one qualitative research course. Or I should say, I would not have come across them outside of my courses with my methodologist, Dr. Janice Vernillier. They were not a part of the discussions when we looked at our work in instructional technology. However, what they had to say can be and have been taken account for by others in order to explain a phenomenon. And those phenomenons can go across disciplines, including instructional technology. Another takeaway was that if I wanted to see how their work impacted my scholarship, I needed to read what they had to say, consider what they had to say, pull them into the conversation, if you will, as it related to my dissertation, specifically my literature review. With all that being said, I want to encourage you to embrace diversity in your educational pursuit, actively seek out opportunities for personal growth and learning, and make sure that you're personalizing your education by going outside of the recommended readings that are perhaps the norm in your discipline in order to incorporate what others have to say. And perhaps those others are from underrepresented groups, and they're underrepresented because they're not pulled into the conversation enough. So please take a look at not only the books that I've referenced, but take a look at what others have to say. How can you find that out? Ask somebody in education policy research, ask somebody in Africana studies, ask someone who deals in social foundations when it comes to education, ask someone who is from an underrepresented group to find out if they have recommendations of others that you might want to consider in your work to bring them into the conversation, highlight what they have to say, offer their counter arguments to what you're doing, as well as what they have to say to enhance your argument. Make sure you're presenting a well-rounded argument by not just showing what side, but showing different perspectives of what someone can say, has said, and could possibly say about a phenomenon. Once again, thank you for listening to another episode of the Black-Liberation.Tech podcast. I am your host, Dr. Renee Jordan. Please feel free to like, subscribe, and share, rate, and review the podcast to help it become more discoverable. And until next time, take care. Bye-bye.